Hi, this is Rachelle from Rivet Patterns, and in this video we're going to be talking about installing a separating zipper. This one is on the Amaranth jacket, but the construction is pretty much the same, however you're doing it. So first thing you're going to want to do is add a fusible interfacing on the wrong side. On this one, I don't put it in my seams because it just bulks it up. So I put it here on the inside. I'm making the hood version, and then all down the center front. And then I stop here at the bottom, for the hem allowance, so about an inch from the bottom. Also, memory pressed my entire hem. It's a 1-inch hem on the Amaranth. It makes it easier to do it now because then you're more accurate when you are adding your zipper. So we're going to start on the right side. Wish I could make this a little bit clearer for you. Okay, maybe. So separating zipper is called that because the two parts come completely apart so that you can put it on one arm at a time. So you'll find these in jackets, mostly coats. I'm sure there's some other non-clothing applications, but we're not going to cover that now. So the very bottom of your stop right here, this is where everything's going to end. So you want this to be lined up with the bottom of your memory hem here. Okay? So you're going to line up the zipper right sides together. You'll know the right side because that's the side your pull is on. So right sides together. Lined up the memory hem because this is where your jacket is going to stop. So you want it to be as close to the bottom as possible. So you see how the stop goes right to that memory press? That's where you're going to start this, okay? So then you're going to pin all the way up to the top here. And when you get up here, you're going to stop pinning where your main hood or collar meets the lining. You can see, so this is my center front. This portion here is my main hood. And this portion here is my lining hood. You don't want to sew onto here. You only want to come up to the very top of your main hood or collar. Now your zipper might be longer. That's totally fine. We will deal with that. Most of the time I get my zippers too long because it's way better to have it too long than too short. So go ahead and pin from the memory press all the way up through the hood. Or you can use Wonder Tape. That is way more my preference because I hate trying to pin through zippers. And then using a 3/8 seam allowance, you're going to baste all along this edge. Right up to about here. Use your zipper foot and a 3/8 seam allowance. Trust me on the basting. It's an extra step, but it probably will save you extra steps later. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. One more thing before I go sew this. When you, on the back side here, the seam between your hood and collar and your main, you want that to be pressed up towards your hood or collar. Because in the end, you will be bringing your lining down to cover it. So you want that seam to be pressed up. Now I'm going to go baste it. All right, so now this is sewn on. We are going to flip it so you can see the right side of the zipper. And then you're going to bring your other center front bodice right sides together. The reason I do it this way, rather than marking the zipper, you can absolutely do that as well. You can unzip it, mark it, unzip it, and line up your points. I like to be able to line them up as I'm sewing because you have several points that you need to line up. First one you're going to line up is down here at the hem. Okay, so your memory hem is going to touch your memory hem, right? So you can see this. Right, this is the memory hem, this is my memory hem, and you're going to pin along the raw edge here. Okay, we're going to match up each mark. I'm just going to use clips to hold it for right this second, and I'll go back and use Wonder Tape later. The second place to line up, this is only if you put the kangaroo pocket on. I did, just to show you. And hopefully you were fairly accurate with keeping it the same on both sides. So again, I'm going to want to line up the bottom and top and bring it over and pin. So I wasn't awesomely accurate. If that does happen, the easiest way to fix this, rather than going back and moving your whole bodice, is to use the stretch of your fabric to your advantage and just manipulate that in. See, it's only a very, very small amount, so I'll be able to get that in just fine. Line 2, hold it there. Hold. And then the last place that you're going to want to line up is up here at the top with your collar or hood. Okay, so remember, we're not going to sew onto the lining. We're only going to sew up to here. So the seam where your collar or hood meets the neckline is the seam that you're going to line up. And remember, you still want this seam pushed up as well. Okay? Okay. This is where it's very, very important that you baste, because after we do this, you're going to open it and make sure that you've made all your marks before sewing it down. So we're going to sew again from the top of the collar. Make sure this seam is pushed up. Make sure this seam is pushed up. You're going to sew all the way down to the memory hem line. So once you've basted your other side, turn your jacket right side out. And you're going to just check that your pieces match. Oh, I missed it a little bit there, but okay, so up at the top, also at the neckline seam, if you have a kangaroo pocket, top and bottom, and at your hem. So once you're happy with this, go ahead, you can unzip the zipper and you can stitch it down. It can be a little bit difficult with the stop at the bottom to get that 3/8. If you're really struggling, you can finish it by hand, or you can just use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's not fantastic, but it will work. So just do your best when you get down here. And I'm going to go sew my zipper in. Now my zipper is all sewn in, and we're going to take care of the bottom part first. So unzip your zipper. If you've ever made an invisible zipper or jeans or something where you want the bottom, this part encased, this is pretty much the same. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold that hem allowance right sides together at the bottom so that the bottom of the zipper here is encased in here. Okay? So now what you're going to do is then you're going to stitch right here close up to the teeth using a 3/8 seam allowance, back stitching on both ends, and do it on both sides. Okay, so next we're going to turn the hem allowance the right way. But first I wanted to show you on the side with the stop. It's in here. I have a really hard time. Zippers come with different size stops. I can't maintain my 3/8 seam allowance here at the very bottom. So the last, 3/8 inch, 1/2 inch or so, I stop my stitches right before the pull, and I leave 2 long tails, and I hand stitch both. I'm a terrible hand stitcher, but it's kind of necessary. And then the long tails, I'm just going to tie them off like you would a dart. And then you'll snip them and you'll turn it right side out. So with this, when you turn this, you're going to push out corners like this. See, now you've got your zipper at the bottom enclosed, and that also turns your hem allowance the correct way. So turn your other side too, and then you're going to go ahead and top stitch all along the hem allowance. The only thing to keep in mind is at the very end, we're going to be top stitching the zipper, and you need to keep in mind how much fabric you're going to want to cover it. If you want your zipper exposed, you're going to kind of press your fabric this way as you sew, or you can bring it in to cover the teeth more. That's up to you, but you'll need to make sure that you do that at the hem allowance so that when you go to do the top and the bottom and top stitch, it'll all be uniform. I'm going to choose to leave mine somewhat exposed because I really like my contrasting zipper. So now that we have top stitched the entire hem, we are done with the bottom. Yay! So now we're going to do the top. The top is done very, very similarly to what we just did at the hem. But if your zipper ends absolutely perfectly right here at this seam, you can skip this step. Most of the time, though, it won't. So when you zip your zipper up, you're going to want it to stop right here, where the lining and the main connect. So we're going to need to stop here. Now, if you have a metal zipper, you might be able to take the stops off with pliers and put them down to create a new stop. You need a new stop so that your zipper doesn't just zip right off the top. So I have plastic. That's not going to happen. There are several ways you can get zipper kits that will give you new stops. For me, the easiest way is to create a bar tack, which is you're going to determine exactly where you're stopping this. And I'm going to stop it like a tooth or so down. So you're going to, just with pliers or whatever, you're going to remove one of the very last teeth, and you're going to create a bar tack in its place. And a bar tack is just when you take your sewing machine and run it back and forth a bunch of times. Or you can hand do it if it's easier for you with the teeth. So we need to create a new stop first. Then we can cut it off right above and continue our sewing. So I've got my zipper shortened now, my new bar tack. If you want to see how exactly I did this, I will drop the link to that video in the comments here. So next, we're going to do pretty much like we did at the bottom with one small change. So move your zipper so that your raw sides are still here. And you're going to bring down the lining, whether this is your collar or this is your hood. It's the same process. So bring this down to cover right here. Okay? Now the difference of what we are going to do is right here at the bottom where you memory pressed. You want to keep that pressed up. Do you see that? Okay? So then we're going to stitch from here to here, still using that 3/8 seam allowance. And then you're going to do the exact same thing to the opposite side. Okay, so now I have my two sides. A tip here, if your fabric is real stretchy, you might want to go ahead and add interfacing on your lining too. I just don't like the extra bulk. One way that it makes it super easy to sew without it getting too stretched out is to sew it on this side that has the interfacing. That way your feed dogs are moving this along. But if you find that it's just not working for you, add interfacing. It'll help a lot. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to turn this whole thing out. And you're going to pull the zipper teeth out. Okay, now you see as you do this, your lining turns to the inside And this part, which is your seam allowance, turns under. So now what you're going to do, and you can use Wonder Tape or pins or however this is easiest for you, you're going to go along the lining, make sure the seam here is pushed up, and bring your lining down and over. That completely encloses that inner seam. So go all the way around the inside, and then you're going to top stitch it. Again, when you top stitch, make sure that you have kept the same width away from the teeth as you did here at the hem. That will make your zipper look even all the way through. All top stitched, all around. I forgot to tell you, you can use a cover stitch. You can use a straight stitch, but because this is still a stretchy seam, I suggest a lightning bolt or another different type of straight stitch. So now the last bit, we need to top stitch, and we're going to top stitch the whole thing. Okay, so this is the last step for here. What it's going to do is it's going to keep this part of your zipper under here. It's gonna tack it down nicely along this. So where you top stitch should be just about right here. Just give it maybe 1/8 of an inch in from the raw part of the zipper. You want to get it fairly close and even, so just pick a distance and stick with it. And what you're going to do is you're going to start at one hem, and you're going to go all the way up. And then you're going to go around the top of either your hood or your collar. And then you're going to come right back down the other side to the other hem. As for what stitch you want to use, if you have a cover stitch machine that can handle the zipper, absolutely free feel to use it. You can use a straight stitch on the zipper portion because it's already interfaced and it's not moving anywhere, so you won't pop your stitches. Around the top of the collar and the hood, that one's a trickier one. I would probably, if I was using a straight stitch, I would probably switch to a straight stretch stitch like a lightning bolt or a very long, narrow zigzag. You would probably be okay with just a plain straight stitch or elongated straight stitch, as long as you don't plan on really like stretching out your hood. It's pretty big. You shouldn't really have to stretch it. But if you do, when you have a straight stitch, it will pop. If your fabric is much less stretchy, if you're using a traditional sweatshirt fleece or a fleece, straight stitch is going to be fine because you won't have that stretch. Okay, that's the last step. And that's how you install a separated zipper.